already know what your money situation is. Not the exact numbers, the feeling, the thing that's there when it's the last day of the month, 8 p.m., and you are cleaning your microwave before you log in to your bank's website. Now, imagine a Tuesday, any Tuesday, nothing special. Day's over, house is quiet, laptop open, cold coffee you forgot about. You open your bank account, not because something's wrong, just because it needs to be done. You scroll through it, make an adjustment, close it. No spike of dread, no bargaining for 5 more minutes. Just done, like changing your sheets, like something you do. That version of you exists, and what's standing between you and it isn't discipline, it isn't income, it isn't willpower, it isn't what you think it is. Because right now, you don't act like that. Right now, you feel jagged, blistery, raw about it. It's kind of painful to sit down and face it. You circle it before you do it, eventually. The minimum. Open the app, do it quickly, close it immediately. Back to safety. You tell yourself you'll look properly later. When you have more time, when you're in the right headspace, you know that headspace isn't coming, and here's what that actually looks like on the inside. Because nobody talks about this part. It's not panic, it's not dread, it's more like a chronic rash you can't figure out. It's a tab you never fully close. Something running in the background that you're half aware of every time you tap your card, or see a number flash on a screen, or hear someone mention savings. You're not stupid. You know the numbers, roughly. You know which card is sitting higher than it should. You know there's something you've been meaning to deal with. You know there's a version of the picture you haven't looked at directly, but you keep it vague, deliberately vague, because vague is survivable. And maybe, if this is hitting somewhere close, you've said some version of this to yourself. I'm just not great with money. I've never really been a numbers person. I'll figure it out eventually. Not as a complaint, just as a fact. Something you've said often enough that it stopped feeling like a thought and started feeling like information about who you are. And that's the part that matters. Not the account balance, not the card, not the avoided email from your bank sitting unopened in your inbox right now. The story. Because once that story is in place, I'm someone who doesn't handle this well. You don't have to make any more decisions. Everything makes itself. The hesitation before opening anything financial, the delayed responses, the things that sit a little longer than they should. It's not avoidance anymore. It's just behavior that matches who you are. And here's what Neville understood about that. Something most people who study money psychology completely miss. The story didn't come from the behavior. The behavior came from the story, which means fixing the behavior was never going to fix anything. This was never about the money itself, not the numbers, not compound interest, not the mechanics of it. You understand enough of that. Most people do. It's not a knowledge problem. It's a position problem. At some point, quietly, without a single conscious decision, you settled into a version of yourself that kept money at arm's length. It felt easier. It still does sometimes. But that position has a cost now, and you already know what it is. You're the one who hesitates, the one who looks quickly and closes the app, the one who keeps things vague because clarity feels like pressure, the one who says, "I'll deal with it later." That version of you isn't reacting to your situation. It's creating the way you experience it. Because once you accept, "I'm not good with money," you don't need to think anymore. You don't need to decide how to act. You don't need to evaluate each situation fresh. The script is already written. Of course, you avoid it. Of course, you delay. Of course, you keep it half seen. That's what that version of you does. And here's the part most people miss. You didn't discover that identity. You practiced it quietly, repeatedly, in small moments, in quick glances, in decisions you didn't even register as decisions. Until one day, it stopped feeling like something you were doing and started feeling like something you are. And once it feels like that, it becomes very hard to question, very hard to step outside of, because it doesn't feel like a pattern anymore. It feels like you. And that is the only thing that needs to change, which raises the question nobody asks. If you practiced your way into it, what would it mean to practice your way out? Neville Goddard had a very specific answer, and it isn't what you'd expect. The answer was simple, not easy, but simple. You don't change what you do first. You change who you are being when you do it, because behavior doesn't lead. It follows. The version of you who avoids money doesn't sit there and decide, "Today I'm going to hesitate. Today I'm going to delay. Today I'm going to keep things vague." That's not how it works. You act that way because it already feels natural, because it matches something deeper, something already accepted, an assumption, not something you say out loud, not something you consciously defend. Something quieter than that, a baseline, a position, a quiet understanding of, "This is who I am when it comes to this." And from that, everything else organizes itself. The timing of when you check things, the way you look at numbers, the decisions you postpone, the ones you make quickly just to get it over with. None of that is random. None of that is accidental. It's consistent, predictable, because it's coming from a single place. The assumption of who you are. And here's the shift Neville was pointing to. You don't fix that by correcting behavior. You don't fix it by forcing better habits. You don't fix it by trying harder to be disciplined, because all of that still happens from within the same identity. It's like asking the same version of you to produce a different outcome without ever leaving the position that created the problem. And that's why it doesn't stick. For a few days, maybe a week, you push, you try, you organize, you get serious, and then you drift back into the familiar timing, the familiar avoidance, the familiar way of interacting with it. Not because you failed, because you returned back to the version of you that still feels like you. And Neville's point was this: if you want different behavior, you don't force it. You move into a different assumption of yourself, a different position, a different version. And from there, the behavior changes on its own. Not because you're trying to be better, because you're no longer the one who needed to try. Which means the question was never how to do better. It was always which version of you was going to show up. Tonight, that changes. So if that's true, then the version of you who avoids this isn't something you need to fix. It's something you need to stop being, not gradually, not over time, not after you feel ready. Now, because that version of you was never permanent. It's not wired into you. It's not something you were born with. It's something you've been occupying, and anything you can occupy, you can leave. That hesitation, that quick glance and close, that low-grade resistance every time money comes up, that's not you. That's a pattern you stepped into and stayed in long enough that it started to feel like home. It isn't. And tonight, you don't negotiate with it. You don't manage it. You don't try to improve it. You step out of it completely. Because the moment you stop being the one who avoids, the one who delays, the one who keeps it half seen, there is nothing left to fix. There's just a different version of you standing there instead, the one who looks, the one who handles it, the one for whom this is just normal. And that shift doesn't happen through effort. It happens through something much quieter, something Neville pointed to again and again. The moment you accept yourself as already being that version, that's where this changes. That's what tonight is. So, close your eyes if that feels right. Nothing to fix now, nothing to figure out, nothing to get right. You don't need to try to become that version of you. You're not building anything. You're not forcing anything into place. You're just letting everything settle, Let your body shift a little, however it wants to. No need to adjust perfectly. Just enough so it feels easy to stay here. Let your hands rest. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench, even slightly. You might be waiting for the part where you're told to breathe deeply. There isn't one. Just notice that you're here. And as you sit with this, there's nothing you need to do about money. Nothing you need to check. Nothing you need to solve. All of that can wait, because this is not about handling it better. It's about no longer being the one who had a problem with it. And that doesn't require effort. If anything, it requires less. Less tension, less reaching, less trying to manage what you feel. Just a quiet shift in position, the same way you would sit differently in a chair. Not dramatically, just enough that it feels natural. That's all this is. A change in where you're sitting internally, and you don't have to force that either. Because the moment you stop holding on to the old position, you notice you were never stuck. You were just sitting somewhere that had become familiar, and you can sit somewhere else now. You already are. And from here, you don't need to convince yourself of anything. You don't need to believe anything new. You just notice what this version of you is like. There's no resistance to looking, no hesitation before opening anything. When money comes up, you don't brace for it. You don't prepare yourself. You just engage with it directly, the same way you would respond to anything else. That needs your attention. There's no story running underneath it. No quiet label of, I'm not good at this. That thought isn't there. Not because you pushed it out, but because it doesn't belong to this version of you. And without that, everything feels different, simpler, cleaner. You open things when they need to be opened. You look at what needs to be seen. You handle what's in front of you, not carefully, not cautiously, normally, with ease. And that's the part that stands out. How normal it feels. There's no effort in it, no sense of doing better, just a quiet, steady way of being. That doesn't make this a problem anymore. And as you sit here, you feel that, not as something you're trying to create, but as something that's already here, already yours, already you. And now, without trying to picture anything, you find yourself back there. A Tuesday, nothing special about it. Day's over. House is quiet in that particular way it gets when the rest of the world has moved on to something else, and you're still here. Laptop open. That same cup next to you. Cold now. Forgotten. And it's time. Not because something's wrong. Not because you're behind. Not not because you've been putting it off, because this is simply when it gets done. You feel the steadiness in your hands as you open it, your account, your numbers, everything that used to carry weight. And you notice there's no intake of breath before you look, no small bracing, no moment of preparation. You just look, the way you'd glance at a clock, the way you'd check the weather, direct, ordinary, yours. You scroll, you recognize what you see, not with tension, not with relief, just recognition. This is the picture. Here it is. You make an adjustment, move something where it needs to go, handle what's in front of you with the same quiet efficiency you'd bring to anything else that needed your attention today. And then you close it. Done. And here's what you notice in this moment. Nothing follows you. It doesn't stay open in the background. It doesn't settle into that slow rash underneath everything. It's finished the way tasks finish. Clean, complete. You set the cup down or pick it up finally, and you move on. And somewhere in the stillness of that, you recognize what just happened. Not what you did, who did it. Someone for whom this is just a normal Tuesday.